what's going on, guys?
Hey everyone, it's
So, I
Anthony
put a poll out on my
Sandrini,
channel
aka
some
Power
time
Ranger
ago
Nerd,
asking you
and
guys what
today
you
I am
wanted to
doing
see a
some
video of
commentary
next.
for my Power Rangers in
And the
Space
majority of
video.
you guys wanted me to take a look
Now,
at a Power Ranger
I do
anniversary
say
season,
this in the
my next
video,
big
but
video.
I put out a
So, we're
poll on
doing that
my
now. And
channel
today,
to
we are
ask you
going to be
guys
taking a look
what
at
you wanted me to
Power
take a look
Rangers
at,
in
and you guys did say
space.
you wanted an anniversary
Now,
season.
this season. Wait, Power
Oh
Ranger
yeah, I
Nerd!
do
You
love
can't do
this.
this! Who are you?
This was basically just a way for me to just go through it
I
and
guess
say,
I'm you.
well, you guys
Though
are
I'm also
probably
a
going
human
to want me
representation
to
of the
take a look at some of the
families.
more
Huh,
obvious
okay.
Power Ranger
Anyway,
anniversary
you
seasons.
can't review this
Since those
season
happen
and
every
that
5
topic.
seasons,
It's
it
not an
was a little bit
anniversary
difficult for
season.
me to try to
We
figure
want you
out
to
which
review
one
something
to
more like
do for
Wild
that.
Force or
But
Super
then I
Ninja
just came up
Steel.
with the idea of just
Okay, I see your
throwing a
point,
curveball.
but while
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
quite
the
literally
sixth
just screwing around
season,
with
do I
everyone.
still
But
consider it
the
an
three
anniversary
reasons I
season?
give
Why?
for why I decided to go with
Well,
this season
anniversary
instead of
seasons
like
bring back a plethora
Operation
of previous
Overdrive,
season
Wild Force,
Rangers and
Super Ninja
characters
Steel,
for a
or
special
Super
sentimental
Mega
value,
Force
like
was
Adam and
actually
Dustin.
these reasons that I give. There's
So check those.
team up
I also
episodes
use it an
with
opportunity to
Adam and
have a
Justin.
story that
There's
utilizes
the
or
fact that
brings
this
a
is
sort of
the final
sequel
chapter
to
in the
the
Zordon
entirety of the
era, and it
series,
wraps up
like
all the
having this be
stories
the
that we
final
had
chapter of the
from
Zordon era.
the previous seasons.
Check.
And also just
And
the
they had
fact
some
that
good
it
times
was
showing
like
both the
all
older
the
team is
other
still going,
uh,
but also
anniversary
how
seasons
awesome the
where it
new
was,
team is.
oh, this is
Like
a
bringing in
team up,
every
so it
single
shows
Ranger
how
and
cool
ally up
the
to
new
this point
Rangers
to
are
fight
while still
alongside with
bringing
them
in
against
some of the
evil,
old
and
Rangers.
having the Space Rangers give up these
And yeah, just
secrets
the fact
to
that
help
they
save the
revealed
world.
the secret,
So
like showing
checkmate.
that they
That
are the
is
Power
why
Rangers,
this
it's like,
is an
man, that is just
anniversary
like the
season.
biggest part about it
So
that
let's take an
was like,
example.
okay, this is the
Now
anniversary
this is
season that I
always
have to
near the
go
top
with.
of my list for the best
But yeah, it
seasons
was
of
also
Power
that not
Rangers.
many people would really consider
The
this an
biggest reason for this
anniversary
is
season,
because it
so
was
that's why I
originally
decided to
supposed to
go
be
with
the
it, because
final
it
season.
was
So
keeping you
they
guys on
pulled
your
all the
toes
stops.
and just going
I
for it.
also love this season because it's a perfect combo of Power
Oh
Rangers
yeah,
and
and then there was
Star
this
Trek.
joke.
Star Wars.
Whatever.
In just about every
I love
single
watching
panel
these
I found on
characters and
YouTube
stories.
for
Notably, Amber's
the
story
cast,
of
Chris
family,
kept saying that
Alpha
the
finally having a more
season
appropriate
was
voice
literally
than that
Star Wars,
hip-hop
and I was
voice
just
of
like,
Turbo,
I can
and
see
Alpha
that,
finally
but
having
I also see
hilarious
it as a
moments and
combo of Power
lines,
Rangers and
not just being
Star
the butt of
Trek,
jokes.
because you get the
Okay, he
action and
still
some of the
is, but he's the
twists
only
of
primary
Star
villain
Wars,
who's
but you
actually
also
making
get
jokes.
the let's just
Not to
roam
mention,
about the
this
universe
season
and
upped
see
the
what we can
drama and
find
action to a
of Star
tremendous
Trek as
degree.
well. So I
I
kind of
also
consider
gotta
it to be a
say,
combo
this
of
was
Power
also the
Rangers in
last
either
season
Star
to
Wars or
include
Star Trek.
bloopers during the end credits.
Oh yeah,
Some
and the bloopers as
issues with
well. Yeah, I
Mighty
really
Morphin
do
Alien
miss
Ranger,
these in
and I really miss
for
these.
the seasons, and
Bring
I do
these
wish that we
back,
could get them
please!
back again, because
Now,
it
when
was
taking
just
a
a
look at
fun
the
way to
characters,
break
there's
up some
already
of the
something that needs
harder
to be
tension.
addressed.
And
Four
while
of the
it doesn't
six
really match
Rangers are
on
from the
two-part
previous season of
episodes,
Turbo,
it definitely is
which I
needed on
will
heavier
talk
seasons
about
like
in
this
another
one.
video. However, it's a little easier
Yeah,
for me to
I
talk
do say
about
it in
them
the
in
video,
this
but I
video,
am planning
as
on
they're here for the
doing Power
entire
Rangers
season
Turbo.
and not
I
just half of
actually
it.
have a script that is
So
in
I'm
the
going to be a
works for it
little more
right now.
in
It's
depth as we learn
just,
more about them
and
throughout the season.
I actually do have a couple
I
of
also want to
Power
note
Ranger
how
scripts
funny it
already
is when
written
we
out,
see them
but
just
right
stop
now
their
it's
search
just
for
more
Zordon for
of
an entire
trying to figure
episode for
out
some reason.
where to
Let's start
let's
with
just
Ames,
say release
played by
these
Christopher Kamen Lee,
episodes as,
who is the
or
biggest
when to
jerk
release the
in the
episodes,
show,
because
keeping secrets like his
the
sister
way that it works
Ramona
is
and
I
the
pretty much
comatose
watch an
Xavier.
entire season,
What
and
else
then
is
I
he hiding on
form
this ship? The
the
Holy Grail?
script right afterwards. Oh yeah,
However,
the
I
Holy
do
Grail
love his
script. I was just
relationship
like,
with Ashley that
with
grows
that
throughout the
joke, I
season.
was just like, okay, he's
It
hiding
can also
so many
be a
secrets
bit
on this ship,
hot-headed
so I
in
gotta go
seasons
for something
that don't keep up,
outlandish, like
and his uncharacteristic
mythical
cheerful
holy item or
nature is
something.
from the Sentai footage,
And that was the best thing
which
that I could come
I
up with.
feel like must have been very hard to adapt into
But
the
back to what I
comic
was
setting.
saying, as I
And like
I
I said in my Dino
usually
Thunder review,
watch a
the
full
main character
season
of
and
each
form
season,
the
in my opinion,
script
is the
after I
Red
watch the
Ranger.
season,
And
so
90%
that
of
I
this
can have
season is
a
focused on
sort
three
of
things. Andros'
what's the
personal
word I'm
mission
looking
to
for?
find his sister, his
A
best friend being the
good
Space
idea of
Ranger,
what every
and
character is
ultimate
like so that I can do a short and concise um,
got competition
uh,
in later seasons for
discussion
how
about them.
serious he can be.
So you may
But
notice
Chris was
in this
also
one that I
isolated
went
from his
a
cast
lot
members at
more
the
in
start of the
depth
show
with
because
my
I was actually
analysis
told
for a
not
lot of
to
them.
hang out with any of the other Power Ranger actors when I first showed up. They were like, "Don't
But
have
it
anything to do with them."
was
And I was like, "Why?" And
actually
they're like, "Well,
that
your character wouldn't
when
like
I
it."
saw that you
and he
guys
hated
wanted
the
me to do an
decision to do
anniversary
this.
season,
His
I
hair was also
actually
bleached for this season, but he was
it took
given a
me
week
like
of
about a
following
month or so
appearances.
to figure out
Yeah, the
which
hair
season
didn't
to
help
do.
either. Yeah, the bleach
And
was not fun.
I
Do
watched this
not
like
do it.
maybe
You will kill your hair, and
6
it
months
also
ago. I'm recording this
sucks.
in
My
December,
hair
but
grows back
I
really
watched
fast,
this
so I
like
have to keep
maybe
getting the bleach done,
in
like, every 3 months or
July,
so.
and I was
It took
actually
hours to
writing
get
the
that
script
done, and
as
my
I was
head was
watching
like
it, kind of
this
thing. I
red.
was taking
The
down
scalp
notes
was like
and
this red.
formulated the
Like,
script
hey,
afterwards. I'm
so
not
how do
kidding.
you
I
feel
went
about
through
wearing a
like
wig?
maybe
And I was
2 or
like, yeah,
3
whatever.
rewrites
And then when I
because the
landed in
script was
California, they
just
said,
that long,
"Nah,
and I didn't want
now
to
it's
have like an
bleach,
hour and a
baby."
half video.
And yeah, that was all their
Yeah,
idea.
I this was
That
one of the
was
things that I was
easily the most painful
really
thing I
that
went
I
through in my
kind of let
life.
drag out a
Yeah,
little
yeah, yeah,
bit,
yeah.
but
I think they
there
got
was
the
a
point.
point to it. It was
Also,
that
I saw a lot of
um
Power Ranger related conventions
while the
on channels,
hairstyle does look
and
cool,
it
it
seems
was that
Chris
on
has some
research I
good
was just like,
characteristics like
wow,
Andros.
Chris was
I am very
actually
good at acting like
had
an
his
asshole.
hair
Moving on to the
bleached
Earth
for it,
Rangers, let's start with
and then
TJ,
it was like
played by
in
Simon
every single
Ward.
panel it's like, okay, he clearly didn't like that decision because he
But
just
anyway,
complained about it
he
in
was
every
originally
single
Earth
panel that he was
Turbo,
on, and I
but
was just
now
like,
relegated to
okay,
Tuesday.
so now I gotta
Someone
just put this
said in the
in
convention
and
panels,
just have
The
to
way it
cut
was
him off
explained
at
to me
some
actually is that
point.
I was still the leader of the Earth Rangers.
But yeah, I went through like
So-
3 or 4 different scripts for this
not to
episode
mention,
just
he's
to
got
try to
some
cut it
awesome
down a
moments
bit,
in the show where
and
he's willing to
um,
sacrifice
that's
his
actually
own
something
life
that
to
doesn't
save
really
his
happen too
teammates,
often. It
and
usually
do
only
what's
happens when I
necessary
have
to
like
save the day.
extremely long scripts,
Additionally,
and
he's almost
there
always the
actually
first
is a
one
video
to
that I
go with
have in the
Andros
works
on
right
more
now.
dangerous missions.
I'm currently going
And it's
through
very nice
some
seeing them
script
form strong
stages
friendship
for
and
it,
even
but it's
bromance.
for so this is a bit of
Lastly,
a
it shows why he's still the
I'll just
leader
say
of
a
the Earth
sneak peek,
Rangers.
preview for it,
As
but
he
I
came up
have
with the
in the
ideas on how to
works
be
a
the
video
Psycho
for
Rangers in
Miraculous
Five of
Ladybug,
Power.
and
Though
that
I have
actually went
no
through a
idea how
lot
all
of the
this shit
same
got
problems with this, because
Next up
since
is
that
Carlos,
show was
played by Roger
is
Velasco,
currently 5
who
seasons
was the
long,
Green
and
Ranger
I watched
last
through all
season
5
and is now the
seasons.
Black
Oh yeah, there
Ranger.
was this joke.
Why?
So
Well,
I'll get back to
luckily,
that
I
later.
have the answer
So
right
if
here.
you guys
Quite
remember
simple,
in
really.
Super
See,
Megaforce, this is
in the
literally a
original
reference
is
to
that
that. In that, in Super Megaforce, character goes from Black Ranger to the Green Ranger in
notable in
between
this scene,
seasons,
he's usually
and
the
there's
first
no
one to take
explanation for it.
charge when the
And
situation
I
calls
just
for it.
decided, well, let me just make up
However,
an explanation and then
during this
just
breakthrough, he
cut
seems
it
to
off
take
in the
charge
middle.
instead of Andros.
That was actually one of my
But it was
favorite
through
things
further
to go
research
for.
I
Just
found an answer
mostly
to this
because I
problem.
love that little Simpsons
In the
joke in
parent
there, because
series,
it's just like, uh, oh,
Carlos
I don't
the
remember
Green
what
Ranger was
happens,
kind
and
of
then
the
there's
leader
the
of the team,
scene,
acting a
miss
bit
scene,
more
and
like a
the
Ranger
end screen, and
more
I'm just like,
leader-like than
oh
a Ranger.
wow, I gotta
Carlos is
use that for
reasonable,
something,
he's
and
always
so I
anxious,
decided to use that for
when he
this.
second-guesses his own actions,
But yeah,
he
getting
shows
back to script
fragility in his
reworkings, it doesn't
confidence.
happen too often.
But I have problems
Usually
with his
when
arc
I
here.
am either
In my opinion, it
uh
comes too late in his
going through a
story.
very long
This actually my biggest
video,
problem with a
like with
lot of
this one.
multi-season
Again, I
stories.
wrote
The characters
I
just
watched
go
the
through
show
transformative
in like
arcs
maybe
too late in the game.
June, I think,
It also
and
seems that
I
Roger
started
needs the
writing the
biggest
script, I
goofball
want to
in
say
the
in
cast,
July,
as he
and
has more
it
bloopers
took me
than
like
any of
maybe
his other
2 to
castmates.
I want to say like
Next
2 to
is
3
Ashley,
weeks
played
to
by Tracy Lynn
get
Cruz.
the script that I
The main
liked,
thing I love about
and
her is
even
that she
then
has
I had to
such a
cut
good
out quite a
heart,
bit from the
but
video
she
because
can be
there were
annoying
just a
rather
few moments
easily,
where
and
things
even
just
she didn't think
were
Shima could be good
not
enough.
really fleshed out, or I was
And on
just
a different
spending
note,
a sentence
during the
on
events
certain
of Turbo,
on
she
a
seems to have a blooming
certain plot
relationship with
points
Carlos,
or
but here
storylines,
she does a
and
complete 180,
things were
ditches
just
him to the friend
not
zone, and
really
falls in love with
going anywhere. And
Well,
that's
I'm
actually what
glad she isn't
happens
in
when
Marvel because she might
I
have
am
fucked
writing a
Andros
long
with
script.
Thanos.
I read through it like
She
5
then
or
goes
6
back to
times,
Carlos for
and
like
each time I just
10
take
minutes
out
to get
things
her
that I
grandma off her
don't
back in
think
the
will
worst
really
episode of the season.
add to much. So, and that happened with and that's happening with Miraculous Ladybug as well. I think the script at this point is around like 50 pages or something, and that's actually where this script actually started out as. And thankfully, I managed to cut it down to like 20 or so pages, but even then, it still took a long time. And I'm not gonna lie, the series this season was very long, and I actually went through so much footage, and I was actually afraid that I wasn't even gonna be able to get this out in time. But yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that I got it out in time, but at the same time, it's like, man, there was just so much that I wanted to talk about that I didn't exactly get the chance to. But I am glad that I was able to get out as much as I could. Um, Sorry, I just hit the table that I was sitting at. But yeah, there's always things that I will say. Usually with script rewrites, 9 times out of 10, I've usually done the rewrites. Will say while I'm filming. There was actually even certain points during other videos where I have a script written out and I'm reading off the script and I just go, well, wait a minute, there's actually something else I wanted to talk about with this person, and I'll just add it in.
Played by Brad Pitt, I mean Justin Nemo.
And sometimes I will well, I more so release them as bloopers, but it's been sometimes like where I just add a script or add a line, or I read from a line and then I just rant on about how in the show it doesn't make sense. And I just it's just like
I do find it funny that he almost died in his first episode.
and then I just add that in, and it's like, or when I go on my rant, I just end up adding that sentence in, and I'm just like, well, maybe I should just put that into the video and everything. I should actually mention for this section, with Zane's character section, there was a cut line from my notes, and mostly because I couldn't remember which episode it was from, so I didn't think that it would be like that important. But I think I did figure out that it was from The Silver Secret, where he's losing his power. I can't be sure, but it was that what I wrote down in my notes was that it was he has such a cocky and I think it was like cocky and or hilarious face that he makes, and I think it was in The Silver Secret when Ashley and Cassie were fighting over what to give him. Oh yeah, this is always hilarious. Apparently that was just not really something that he did for the character. I've heard this said once or twice by, I want to say, Chris, and apparently that's just how Justin eats a lot of items. He just stuffs his mouth full. And I'm just like, wow, really? Is that really how somebody eats these things? I just always assumed that it was something for the episode, just to make him look even more like dorky and cocky.
Seriously, I'm so glad.
But yeah, I say it here, but I do love Alpha a lot in this season, because he's back to acting like a mentor-styled friend, rather than acting like a what's it called? A hip-hop teacher. And the biggest, I do mean what I say when I said that he's kind of pointless half the time. But yeah, he's nowhere to be found in Countdown to Destruction, especially in the... No, he's not in either part except for in the final scene. So yeah, he just disappears off the... I don't want to say off the face of the earth, but he disappears completely from a lot of the episodes, and it never explains where he is or what he's doing. Also, I will say for the for this section with their, I'll just call them with the civilian allies, I was very much debating on if I should keep this part in, talking about the Rebels and Adele. I definitely wanted to keep Adele in because, as I say in the video, there's just something special about her. It's like someone else taking a shot at the Ernie role, but making it their own. Like, we see it with Lieutenant Stone in, I want to say, Zeo, but definitely Turbo. But there, it just felt like, okay, we're not getting a character who is similar to Ernie. We're just getting someone replacing him. But here, it's like, okay, this clearly isn't the same area, so we can judge it as is.
Okay, I think you have to put in money to have it.
Oh yeah, this part.
Sure, I can go with it.
Actually, but
Finds the pictures, and Black
I did
knows
debate
to do
on
things with
if
it.
I should
Promising
keep
not to
the
tell him
Rebels
does.
in there because there wasn't really much that I could
She
figure out to
simply
talk
and
about
a
them.
little selfishly
But
sounding
I decided to
says,
keep it in because it's just like, well, if I left it out, I think everybody would get mad at me.
After everything you
But
just
yeah, for
put it
this,
through,
this was all.
What
Most of what I said about
Yeah,
Sylvie
I'm with
was
Carlos
from
on
one
this one.
single episode, and
while it's revealed
I
later
just
that
hated
Sylvie's
her
tragic
in
backstory,
Carlos
she
on
deserved
Call. I
every
say it in
single
the
moment
episode,
of
but
that
yeah, she just
punishment
took
for taking
way
advantage
too
of him
much
all day
advantage,
and even
or
threatening
she
him.
just took advantage of
However, she's
Carlos,
much better in
and
her second appearance.
I stand by the fact that I think
Where
she
she's
deserved the
so
scolding
much
that she
better.
got, even if
Tom
she had a
Hardy,
tragic
kind of a
backstory.
smart, snarky
But I
kid,
like her a lot
has
more
a
in Mission to
compliment
Secret
class
City
that
because
she
it's
knows
like
it.
they looked at the problems from Carlos on
This scene just
Call
makes me
and
laugh.
decided and said and
What now?
they looked at Carlos on Call and
What about him?
basically were like,
And I also
wait a minute, I
love
think
her
we made her a
relationship
bit
with
too
Carlos
bratty
in
in there.
Second
Let's
City.
make her a little
As he
more
takes on more
relatable.
of a
And I do
looking
like her a
out
lot
for as if
more.
they were siblings,
And
which
yeah, I really
gosh,
think
would have been a
that
much better storyline, in
she
my
should have
opinion.
been Carlos's sister because in
And
Mission to
finally,
Secret
we
City,
gotta talk
he
about
acts
Vulcan
like he's her
Skull,
older brother.
played by Paul Schreier and Jason Narvi.
Oh yeah, going over
Gotta
Bulk and
love this
Skull.
stuff.
These guys, I always love
They
Bulk
have an
and Skull
additional
because
character named Professor Phenomenon,
even if their comedy
played by
doesn't
Jack
work,
Banning.
it's always
These
fun
guys
to just
this
see
season's
them.
comedy duo, I mean,
However, I say it in the
and the
episode, but
professor's whole
I'm not
shtick here is that he
exactly
thinks
a
everything
fan
is an
of
alien.
Professor
Bunny,
Phenomenus.
a
And yeah, that
beehive,
actually was a joke
watermelon,
for
and even a sign
the
about
video. I
real
actually
aliens.
came up with that during some of the later scripting phases. I think it was like the second to last
Yeah,
script
I'm not much of a fan of
that I
this
wrote for this.
phenomenal
In
guy.
the, and there I was
The
just
alien
like,
jokes get very
well,
old very fast.
Professor Phenomenus is
But
a
he does have
bit
this
too
one
long
line.
to say. Maybe I should just go to Phenomenus. Maybe I should just mention him as
I'm
Phenomenus
not kidding. That legit gets
and
a smirk on
when
my
I
face
talk about
every
him
time I see it.
again
Yeah,
later.
like in
And
the other seasons
but then I was like,
previously, their
well,
comedy
let me
is
just do
about
something that's a little bit
75-25, with
similar
some
to some
moments
other
not getting anywhere.
reviewers
But they're
and
still
just
charming.
come up with a random name
Plus,
for him,
their
and I
voice
just went
has
with
changed,
Phenomena.
sounding like the original score if they just
Yeah,
added
it was this
Mr.
part where I was
Phenomenus
just
to
like,
it.
I don't want to
And
say,
it
and they just
really,
added
really
Professor
worked for me.
Phenomenus, because that's a
But I
bit
will
too
say,
much
my
of a
favorite joke
mouthful.
from
So I
them
was just
was when
like,
they somehow
so I was
just
just
got their
like,
pants
wait a
to
minute, let
stand
me
up on
change his
the
name to Mr. Phenomena.
But the
Because
secret
I was just
shines
like,
because of the
well,
villain.
that just sounds a little bit
What I
funnier,
love
and
is that
I
we
was
see
just like,
all
well,
of
let me
this
just keep getting his
in
name
addition
wrong.
to
That'll be
clips
pretty
from
funny.
previous seasons. And
Oh yeah, and
as you
yeah,
said,
I
design,
always loved this scene, but
makeup, and
there was
prosthetics
actually a joke that I
amazing.
cut from
However,
Andros's part, and that shot of him in the cloak at the bar on Onyx, that actually reminded me of the joke that I cut because when he's in that cloak and when he's like talking, like he usually talks like this, but he talks like this when he's in the bar, and I'm just like, okay, is he trying to sound like Batman, or is that just something that Chris decided the character would sound like here? Because, and during that scene, and during the first scripting phases, I was like, yeah, let me just make sure that I have a clip of that, and I'll just have it play, and then I'll just say, wait, are you trying to sound like Batman, or is that just what your altered voice would sound like? But then I decided to cut it because it would have I don't know why I decided to cut it, but I felt like it was just taking a little bit too much away from what I was talking about. And there wasn't really any place to fit it.
It was really fun to torture Elgar.
Oh yeah, and Melody Perkins, man, she is so good in this. I love her voice, but as I say in the video, there is just so many lines from her that just sound. I mean, I can't personally say this because I didn't really grow up with it, but I can imagine that she was the reason a lot of the teenage boys, or a lot of the male fan base that was watching this at the time, I think that would have been why they hit puberty early. I don't really know why I didn't put that in as a joke for the video, but it was. I was already talking so much about how her voice was, I'll just say, sounding too adult for this kids show, but it was also just like, well, I need to get to actually talking about her and not just her voice, and I'll just say outfits. Oh yeah, this little subplot. Yeah, I never understood that. How is it that Zane and Astronema have pictures of each other? We never saw them exchange these images.
When I first watched this season, I did not see this coming. However, sadly,
Astronema being Andros' long-lost sister Corone, that is a bit of a tired trope, having a villain be somebody's father. Heck, I am your father from the villain business is, I'm pretty sure that's a trope on TV. I'm pretty sure that's something that's been in just about everything, and it's been parodied so much to the point that no one can really take it seriously. But this was a nice spin on that idea. And yeah, it's just like it's just like every move from Astronema somehow feels. I say it in the video, but every movement from her feels sexy somehow. Oh yeah, and he clipped her. Actually, for some of the episodes here, I have the idea to take a look at some of the Sentai seasons as well, and you guys can let me know in the comments what you want me to take a look at, but I do have the idea to take a look at the Sentai seasons, and so when I think it was like before I was actually writing the script, or rather during the early parts, because I had to get an idea for with what the Rangers were like in the original Sentai, I took a look at some episodes of Mega Ranger, and yeah, it was like Ecliptor being brought back to life there. I think there his name is Ugande or something, but they had an explanation for why he returned in the Sentai, but there's no explanation for his return here, because he gets blown up in like episode 3, and then he just returns in episode 5, and it's like there's nothing to explain why he returned. And that always drove me nuts, because it's like, the Rangers just accept the fact that he's back? I mean, come on, guys. Well, how did he return?
But to put it bluntly,
there was actually even something that I missed earlier, and it was that it was me just asking, how did Ecliptor know the truth? I actually realized just now that I somewhat misworded that, and it was less of how did Ecliptor know the truth, and how did Ecliptor know that Corone or Astronema was Andros' sister?
This isn't Power Rangers, it's freaking Home Alone!
I do like that joke, because I just released the Home Alone video, and this is coming out the month after, so that was a pretty funny joke that I included there. There was actually even cut
But he is
line
so
from
evil and
this
loves
one
us
that
and
I
caring about
recorded
us
and
constantly.
everything, and it was
So,
basically
what
that
about
I
the
was
mob boss?
ashamed for
Seriously,
the
this
voice
guy is
actor
so
Steve
evil, even
Kramer.
Palpatine is saying
Oh yeah, this
"Doubt
joke
it,
was
doubt it,
hilarious.
doubt it."
This was actually one of the
Also,
first things that I recorded
is
was
Ezra not
Palpatine saying
saying
that.
something? Okay, well,
But a cut line from
extending
me
into
was
his
that
greatest power, his
I
silver tongue,
assumed
which
that
puts him into astronomous
just
inner
doing
circle,
that voice
and he's the
for
only character not to be
Darkonda
seduced by
must have
astronomy.
shredded the actor's vocals during
Dang,
every
that's a cold
session.
character. He
Because
also has a
it's
grudge
like
against
doing
Andrew
that
in
voice
this
for an
version,
extended
though
period of
later
time. I
revealed
think
that
they say
he's
for
the
like
one who kidnapped
4 or
her
8
will.
hours a day, and it's
Wait,
just like,
and why did he do it
man,
with
I would
Elizabeth,
assume
his
trying to do
wife?
that voice for that long
Seriously,
would
these
be
two hate each other so much,
extraneous
it's
on the
hilarious.
vocals. And
I really should
heck, there have been
mention that he
times when
literally
I've even
stabs
tried doing
Anakin
it,
in the back
and I
multiple
can
times,
barely
uses
last
him
for
as a
like
human shield.
2 minutes in
He
that
will
voice
literally fight
before I
enemies
need
and
like
sell
some
out
water or
others
something.
just to get what he wants.
They have all tried to destroy me.
Oh yeah, there was
Yeah,
this joke, and I
because you're an
actually
asshole.
didn't know if
I
I
should also
should
mention
bleep
that
it
he's
out or
in
not,
9
but
Lives,
I decided that I should
which also
because
goes
yeah,
with
that would
Astronomer
be a little
Later.
bit that would make it a
These
little
two
more
killed
okay
our
for
respective
kids, I
man
guess.
Astronema and take their place
Yeah,
as
and then there
rulers
was
of the
this scene with
universe.
his 9
In which
lives.
he
He
puts
he
the
literally
Anakin
tries to
with
take over the universe with 1 life left.
and he fails and
Wouldn't it make
dies?
more sense to take over the universe when you had all 9 lives?
Pretty sure
Yeah,
Pat
for this I
came
was
up with
just
a
like,
better plan than that.
my original line was,
And his smile is
"Oh,
so
you
much like the
think?
Joker,
Nice work,
as I
nice work,
wanna
idiot."
smile with
But
him.
then I was like, "Well, wait a
Honestly,
minute. Well,
for the villains,
I want to get the
not a
point across that this was a
complex
very stupid idea." So I was
Now,
just
the
like,
first thing I noticed is that
"Well, who's a
listening to
dumb
convention
character that I
narratives,
could just
the actors were
call out?" And I was like,
heavily
"Well,
altered.
Patrick Star is
They
the
even
dumbest
did this
character
for
I could
Justin
come
too.
up with." So I was just like,
I do
"Yeah,
like
let me
the
just talk
Rangers'
about that."
outfit designs, with the colors on their helmets
Yeah, the
slightly
Psycho
different
Rangers. They were
than
probably my
ours.
favorite
But let's
villains in
say
the
hypothetically
entire
that I'm a Ranger. How would you
Zordon
guys
era.
prepare me?
I mean, aside from Astronema for obvious reasons. Oh yeah, with this scene, I inserted shots of myself into it because it was just like, well, the clip has the Rangers in there, and I was just like,
that's a given.
well, we gotta
Ability to
learn.
train the Rangers' knowledge
Well,
to know their every
I was
move
like,
and take
but
down
let's say if I'm a
Rangers is
Ranger,
terrifying.
because when they're
Yeah,
introduced, it's
they're
like,
adapted to fight their
okay,
own
they're the
kind,
Psycho
and the
Rangers.
Rangers
They
were
say
used
that,
to
and
take
then they
advantage
start
of
listing off
counter-attacking
how they're
5
better than the Rangers, and then Psycho Pink just says, "But we're
that's the
evil,"
line
and I
of the
was,
female,
and
dude.
when I was watching the show, I was just like,
Quite interesting to see their obsession,
"But
and it's
we're
hilarious to see
evil."
them
I mean,
use their
that's a
super
given.
strength
You guys are
to
literally
avoid
attacking the
their
heroes.
destruction when finding the Rangers.
But yeah, I decided to insert shots of myself into that because
Well,
with the
they
clip that I
did.
was using to keep it
However, it's
going,
weird that only Psycho Red is said to be
the
obsessed with
rain
destroying
there
the
were
Red
shots of the
Rangers,
Rangers in
even by
between,
his
so I
fellow
decided to just
Psychos,
insert
who
shots of
seem to be
myself just
exact
going,
same way.
okay. And then I was just like, well, let me also make up some stuff. So that's why you see me with my arm up, because
It is
the
interesting
full
to
shot was
see
me
two
just
men
looking at
backstab
my
each other to
arm,
further
like
their own
looking at my
agenda.
muscles, looking at the camera and
And
just
I
going,
kinda like the plot
yeah,
twist
okay.
that Psycho becomes a dark
Just like
character,
giving up,
and
because
their
like,
powers drain
yeah,
them
they
to
probably are
strong
stronger than me.
psychological colors. And their power
But
is
yeah,
so
it's
immense
just
that
like,
even one
the
Psycho
Psycho Rangers were
might
so
overwhelm the
cool in their
entire
design.
team
I
of Rangers
love
to do
the,
it.
I want to say like bat
I should also
shoulder
mention that I
pads
don't
that they
see
have,
the
and the
leaders of
fact that
evil
their helmets just
constantly
look,
vying for dominance.
just have the colors looking
Though
like
it's heavily implied
eyelids.
that Red
I say
is
that in the
the
video, but
team.
it's just a cool
And
design.
while the Psycho Saga, as I like to
Plus,
call it, is only 6 episodes,
their
they
introduction
do
really
return as
was a
ghosts
shakeup.
in Mission to
Oh,
Secret
and their
City.
the ghosts thing.
Wait, they're
That
ghosts
one
now?
was a little bit
That's
odd, and like I say
no
in
sense
the video,
whatsoever.
it makes
What's
no
the show that not
sense
even
for
a
it.
guest can stop the obsession?
But yeah,
Psycho
it's just
Pink
like,
is
that's a
ingenious,
pretty cool way to bring them back.
with them revealed to be an astronomer's possession.
Yeah, and
But
then
she
and then
doesn't
their
do
defeats being
anything
turned
with
into
them.
the key cards, and
And we are going to go over their
so
powers
first of
in
all,
more
how did
details.
Astronema even get them? That was my biggest
But for
question
now,
for it.
let's go over the suits, which aren't my
Yeah, the
personal
suits,
favorites.
they aren't exactly my
For
favorite.
you,
They're a little
they
too
lean the
simple.
extra wiser.
I do like the
That has
look
no
of them
reason
though.
to
They do look a
exist.
little, well,
Zane's suit
if you don't know, in the original Sentai Mega Ranger, they were more cybernetic, or not cybernetic, but more kind of like cyberspace kind of. It was more of a cyberspace video game kind of season. And that's why there were, yeah, that was with this part. Gosh, the CG really doesn't hold up. But it was more cybernetic or cyberspace kind of thing. Just with a slight space motif. But yeah, it was a very different thing when it came to Power Rangers. Oh, but the Battleizer was really fun. I always, every time though I will say, I did know about the, I will say I first started watching this season around like maybe 2014, and I'll just say it, when I was first watching the season, I already knew that there was a Battleizer in this, that this was the first season with the Battleizer, and I'll be honest, I grew up with Dino Thunder. That was my first season, and the first season that I watched like start to finish. So I kind of knew a little bit of what the formula was going to be, which was the core team is introduced. So like the first 4 or 5, like the first 3 or 5, then the 6th Ranger shows up. And then, so from with what I remembered from Dino Thunder, I think it was like maybe 10 episodes later that the Battleizer shows up, and it's in for the rest of the season. And so when I was first watching this in 2014, I was just like, okay, where's the Battleizer? When's the Battleizer coming? Where's the Battleizer? I just kept going, where's the Battleizer during this? And it was like it was like 5 episodes left, and I was like, oh, finally the Battleizer's here. And yeah, I was on doing this. I actually had to re-record that line. There were a couple of re-recorded lines in this, and that was actually one of them where I say 4, and it barely comes out to 4 minutes. Because my original script said that it barely came out to 10 minutes, which I didn't know how long it was, because I found that out when making this video. So how it usually works is I find all the episodes that I can, and I put together, or I get them all onto Premiere, and then what I did for this was I cut out all the parts that, all the shots that included the Battleizer, and then I timed it out pretty much. And yeah, when I did that, it was like, I want to say like 3.5 minutes or something. But yeah, I was very close to cutting everything from the suits and the Megazords as well, because there was barely anything to talk about. Oh yeah, the team up episodes. But there was barely anything that I could talk about for the suits or Battleizers, so I almost cut them out, but I left them in because people would get I figured people would get a little mad if I didn't. And it was with a show that, yeah, this was a very weird crossover with the Ninja Turtles, and it wasn't even with a very good one. Yeah, I found out that like by this point the series had already been canceled, so basically they tried this as a last hurrah. Obviously it didn't work. But yeah, it was. Oh yeah, and there were so many questions that came up for me with the other 2 crossovers with Adam and Justin, because it's like, I read online that the episodes were supposed to tie up loose ends in the previous seasons, but again, like I said in the video, oh yeah, I always, every time I watch Storm Blaster and Lightning Cruiser in the shows, I always come up with random things for them to say when they're just like, vroom, vroom, vroom. But yeah, with Adam and Justin's episodes, they were supposed to tie up loose ends, but I ended up asking so many questions during it. I mean, we don't get an explanation as to where Adam's been, but how does he... But yeah, my biggest question from him was, how did he still have his morpher?
did you get tied up here?
Yeah, I like that line because it was just like, oh, Adam is beating up the monster Gan, and then we cut away from him for like 5 seconds, and then the next time we see him, he's all tied up at the hands.
Phantom Ranger, but he's only there for
So yeah, the Phantom Ranger, there was supposed to be some kind of story for him in this season that ended up getting cut, but I couldn't find any actual notes about it. There was a theory that he was supposed to be Billy, and that's actually what I said in here. However, more recently I discovered that was a theory, not an actual, that was more of a theory, not an actual plot point. I actually read that, seemingly he was supposed to be like a ghost ranger or something, like the embodiment of all the deceased strangers.
And when talking about the episodes, it's always fun because they
when talking about the episodes, there were a lot of different episodes that I wanted to talk about completely, and I do kind of skewer it when because I usually go for like 4 or 5 episodes, but with this I also included like the crossover episodes as well. But with those ones, I kind of had to talk about them because it's just like, well, this is the main draw of the season. There's all these quote unquote team up episodes, so it's natural that I should talk about them.
But we do get a wonderful.
Oh yeah, the floating head. That was so stupid. The floating head for Ecliptor was so goofy, but a lot of fun too.
But it makes more sense in Mega Ranger.
Oh yeah. This was actually one of the main episodes that I did try to get to in Mega Ranger, because it's just like, because it was like, well, why is it that Carlos is the only one who goes? And when I watched Mega Ranger, it was like, well, Reds is there because he wants to do things on his own, and the Black Ranger acts more like a leader there. Oh yeah, the Brilliant Sting. Yeah, the Brilliant Sting, I'm not gonna lie, that was actually one of the scarier episodes for me. Mostly because I didn't know if when I was first watching it, I couldn't figure if the Rangers were going to live through it or not. Or if it was just gonna be like, oh, one Ranger survives and it's up to him now, or her. But yeah, I do like that they pulled the Jaws alien thing by not showing the full monster until like about halfway through. But yeah, the transformation sequence is so, but not the transformation, the build-up is so epic for it. And I did write it in the script, and it is here, but just a Ranger with his shirt off. I wrote that joke in there because it's just like, oh my gosh, we've seen so many seasons with a Ranger with his shirt off. We've got Wild Force, we got Lost Galaxy, we got this season, we got I think Coda in Dino Charge. There was apparently also Troy in Megaforce, but I don't remember that. I'll probably remember it when I get to the season. But yeah, it was just like, we've seen it so many times that I just want to be like, oh my gosh, I gotta talk about that real quick. Oh yeah, and then this is my favorite episode, A Date with Danger. I do say it in the video, but it does feel kind of like a Romeo and Juliet kind of story. But it's also just like a dorkable romance between Astronema and Zane that I honestly can't be mad at it in any way.
The only line in the entire series where Elgar is funny.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Elgar's line here always gets a laugh out of me. Just the, what am I, her mother? That always gets me laughing.
It's also nice to see Zane cook.
And yeah, I always laugh at this part too, where Zane's just like, oh, definitely needs more salt. But I'm just like, I mean, that's also just a stereotype of guys. Like, we apparently can't cook. And I'm just like, well, I can. I find offense at that. I find some offense at
Feels
that.
like any family discussion.
Oh yeah, an astronomer in this
Clearly
scene.
hiding something.
There was actually a point
And
where
Ecliptor
I
really
wanted to talk
feels
about
like a
Astronema
father to
when
Astronema
Ecliptor's
And
trying to talk to her
I do
about
find
like
it weird
the
if
Horrible
players
has
related
downloaded
Astronema
all the
somehow
Rangers'
have pictures of
weapons and gear, and
It
I
kinda
wanted to
comes
talk about
out
that
and
scene
give
because it's
us
like,
hope
oh,
that the future
Astronema
could
looking
become
longingly
healthy.
out at the stars and not even
And I
listening to
also feel
Ecliptor, and
so
I'm just like,
bad for Astronema
well,
while she's
that's
waiting.
kind of gonna
That
drag a
I
little
want
bit.
to
Plus,
take
I
her
do
with her
talk
to keep
about
her
this
company.
kind of thing again with
While their argument
Ecliptor
breaks my heart
in
every
Astronema's
time,
room.
I understand that this had to be done to keep the status quo. Oh,
Yeah, as much as I understand that the episode had to
And
keep
Bane's puppy
them
dog dies
separate,
while he's moping while the
it
others
would have been
try
a
to
little bit
awkwardly
interesting
comfort
if
him
they
is
had
so
stayed
adorably
together, because
sad and
then it would have
funny, too.
been a little more
And then we
of an
come to the
interesting
scariest
story.
episode, Silence is
Oh, right, Silence is Golden.
should
I
have
love
started
this
mentioning
joke that I
this
wrote.
is Tracy's favorite episode.
Because when Psycho Rangers came in, I did not know if I had a job.
Yeah, apparently this episode was like the first time that the
It was
cast
on this
met
most
the
recent
Psycho
rewatch that I
Ranger
realized
actors.
the Psychos haven't even seen
And
the Rangers'
apparently
faces.
Tracy thought that Psycho Yellow
The
looked a
episode
lot
also
like her,
shows
so
that the
she didn't know if she was
because
out of a
Cassie
job or
usually
not.
doesn't know.
Oh yeah, and then there was this little
Seriously,
plot
how did they
hole.
not know the other
It's
was
like both
there?
Ashley and Cassie are at the
As soon as
same
Ashley saw
place,
the
but
Psychos,
they
she
somehow
grabbed
didn't know
Cassie
the
and
other
went
was
off.
there.
Yeah, let's get to
Like,
the reason why you all
It
remember
it
this
doesn't make
episode.
much sense in the context
This
of the
is the
story,
episode
but
where the Psycho Rangers take
yeah,
on
and then there was also the
Rangers
hearing
to
thing
fight
that I
Psycho.
talk about later, but it's just like,
Also, am I the only one who thinks Michael Mays?
oh yeah,
the
this
first
joke.
Psycho
Michael,
looks
I'm
like
not kidding.
Doc
Michael
Brown
Mays
from
looks
the
like
show.
Doc Brown. Every time that I watch
Also,
that
fantastic
shot, I'm just like,
by Andros
Doc
from
Brown, when did you get here? I don't know why. I just always figure that he looks like a young Doc Brown for some reason.
And Cassie was the best one to do
But
this
yeah, it
because
was
she
just
had
like the hearing
biggest
thing
number
for the
of
Psycho
viewers.
Rangers. Like my biggest question,
That was
my
all
biggest
hope is
question
lost
was
moment.
how far can they hear?
And it makes me question
Because
how far the
one,
Psycho Rangers
it
can hear.
shows that they
Is it just
that their
small?
eyesight
I mean,
is
it
what
doesn't look
gives them
that
to
big.
focus on who's
Are they
speaking.
able to listen in on
Though
the entire planet like
Cassie
Superman, or
did
can they just hear
scream,
everything that's going on in
did
the city?
scream, look out.
And
So
how are they able to pick up
so
Ashley
that
and
kind of
Cassie's
throws it a little
voices
out.
when they're
But the
showing
other
them
thing was
only pick
they
up
never
voices of
explain
their
how
main
far
focus?
they can hear.
Yeah, these are really the only
Like,
questions that came up when I watched
could
this
they actually
episode.
hear the entire Earth,
Oh,
or
but
is it
see,
just
that's
for
even
the
better. It fits
oh
its
yeah, this scene.
perfectly. Either.
Yeah.
Oh,
But yeah,
my
it's never
favorite
explained
line
how
in the
far
episode
their
is
hearing
this.
goes. So it could either be the whole planet or just the
mean,
mall, but it's like,
They are psycho.
I
Well,
don't
Psycho
know.
Rangers, but still very
But yeah, that
similar.
was like the biggest question that came from that
And
episode.
finally, there's the biggest episode and
Right, and then the
moment in
two-parter.
all of
I'm not
Rangers.
kidding. This was like
Down to
this
destruction.
one episode trying to
I am
write
not
a
kidding. This is the
nice,
biggest two-part
concise,
story in the
yet
entire
still
series.
proper,
Yes,
I'll
even
say,
those. I literally could watch this
section
now
for
without
this
having my
was
jaw drop
probably
at
the
some point.
hardest thing that I could do.
But what I do
Because there's
love is
so
that
much
this
that
finale
happens in the
isn't one
episode
where
that
the
I
world is
felt
at
like I
stake.
didn't
No, no, no,
get
no, no.
everything.
The whole entire universe is at stake. And they pull out all the stops.
But I do agree with what I say. They pulled out
There's
all the
Neon
stops for
Rangers,
it. They brought in
Wilson
all the
Turner,
previous
Gold
Rangers
Zeo,
who
and
are
Phantom Ranger.
still have their
I also
powers,
love that they
but
bring
why not
back
all the
a
Zeo
lot of the
Rangers?
monster suits too.
And yeah,
There's
just all the
Pumpkin Rapper,
monsters. Oh yeah, I went through all
Bluefish,
the
Dr.
Wikipedia page
Phantom,
for it,
and who could forget?
and who can forget Wolfgang Amadeus Griller? I was just like, okay, I know I'm gonna want to talk about Pumpkin Rapper because that's like a fan favorite for ironic reasons. But then I just wanted to go through. I went to the Ranger Wiki page, and I just looked at what the armies for each of these guys were, and I was just like, okay, let me pick out maybe 3 monsters from each of them and just mention them and see if I can find them in the shots that we see. So I legit could not find like about 15 of the monsters that they mentioned. Like one of them I wanted to say was Catastrophe, which was Catherine's Catherine Hill, or Cat, which was her monster form from Mighty Morphin. I saw that on the list, but I legit could not find her. But yeah, I was just like, when I go, and who can forget Wolfgang Amadeus Griller, I was just like, let me throw in some random one. I'm pretty sure no one remembers who Wolfgang Amadeus Griller is, and it's just like, I can barely get through that. I can barely get through all of the monsters, because it was just like, okay, there's so many in here, I don't think anybody's going to remember half of these guys.
Confusing death scene.
Yeah, this death scene never really made sense to me. I mean, we see her laser blast not kill, but seriously, like, well, I'll say injure or blow up monsters. Not even half the time, it doesn't even blow up monsters. And it hits her in like the side, and if it hit her in the chest, I would understand the death a lot more, but it hit her like in the
they still have them and can
off to the side of the right abdomen, and that doesn't seem like a place that would I'll say give you make you die.
Really, guys? I think the whole
Yeah, even the cast talked about how they, or even Chris talked about how he didn't like this. But if you haven't seen it, go watch. I think it was a J1 Comic-Con panel. It was literally just him and Justin, but he literally just said a story where he was just like, oh, so for this, I'm not gonna cry over her and have her come back to life, and the directors go, yeah, and I just go, no, and I'm just like, that is legit how we felt, the fan base. Yeah, apparently there was a but yeah, it was just like the magic healing tier, that never sat well with me. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. When I was done recording this, I will say this. When I was done recording, I had like maybe 2 hours total of raw footage. And I actually used 2 different types of footage. There was the live action footage, which I recorded on a separate day. And then there was the audio as well, which was through more just straight audio recordings. But yeah, I had like 2 whole hours of raw footage, and good gosh, it took me so long to just edit that down to a nice like 50 minutes kind of thing.
I swear I didn't edit.
But yeah, I mentioned that the previously on the next time on segments are my least favorite thing. And yeah, I would have kept Andros's identity a secret. But there was something that I originally wanted to say but decided against it. And that was just the introduction of the character Seymour. You know, that stupid little, I'll say, baby alien that Andros picked up and was originally just like a tiny baby, and then like the next day he grew to like the 2 inches taller than Andros.
Well, yeah, but there are still a few issues.
Yeah, I didn't like the character of Seymour, but I decided that I would just take that out because it's just like, I don't know if anybody would even remember that character. Yeah, for that joke, I wanted to just have it be where I kind of wanted it to be a running gag in some of my Power Ranger videos, where it's just like, okay, I'm wanting to try to wrap this up, and then something keeps interrupting me. And for this one, I just decided, let's just have it be that I want to say, let's just have it be that I want to say it's a nice season, but Chris keeps interrupting me, saying it's the best season ever. And because that's more objective, or subjective, because everybody's gonna have their own opinions about it. But yeah, me personally, I still think that Dino Thunder is the best season, but this one is a great season in and of itself. I do think objectively this is the best season, but my personal favorite is Dino Thunder.
be sure to leave a like if you want to see more Power Rangers.
Yeah, I do always want to
videos. I do want
add
talk
this,
about
but
the other
I
things.
feel like not a lot of
Leave
people
a
see
comment, let me
this
know what you want me to
part,
talk about next.
so I do
Subscribe if
think
you
that I
like,
should
ring
mention
that
that
bell for notifications.
mention this
Also,
kind of stuff
check
at
out my
the start of the
Discord
episodes.
server.
But yeah, I do have a
On
Discord
Twitter
now.
at
And
PRNerdOfficial,
yeah,
and
and
follow
a
me
Twitter
on
and a TikTok as well.
May the power protect you all, and I'll see you guys next
Yeah,
time.
I do always like ending
Take
my
it away,
videos with
Rangers.
like some kind of ending like this. So just like, putting in the character's morphine. That's a good way to end it because it definitely gets people hyped. And yeah, this is another bit of editing because I put in the characters saying like their power or their color name while they're morphing. That way it doesn't drag out everything. So yeah, take care guys.